What's up, guys? Four Wheeler Doctor back again. Alright, today we're working on a little something different. Got a little RM85 in the shop. This thing has had a rebuild fairly recently. You can actually see the cylinder looks pretty good on it. But the guy I got it from said that it was run without oil and it's got a bad knock on the bottom end. He was saying that that's from not running engine in the crankcase, which are in the bottom end here, which I'm pretty sure that that's just for the transmission portion. The actual lubrication for the crankshaft comes from the oil that's in the gas, and he said it had so much oil in the gas that it was thick. So I don't know what in the world's going on with it, but anyway, it will crank up and run. Just makes a god-awful rattling noise, and it does have a little JB weld on the case there, in case y'all noticed that. It was leaking oil, and that's how they decided to fix it. So what I'm gonna do tonight is just try to pull this thing off real quick. I actually got a dang golf cart I got to put a motor on tonight too, so I'm gonna try to pull this one off real quick and sit it in the floor, and I'll have another video coming up of the tear down of it, but we're just trying to get this thing off tonight. Alright, first thing we're gonna do, we got to pull this, get the exhaust off of it. I'm gonna get the seat off and the gas tank. Seat just has two bolts here on each side, 10 millimeters. The gas tank should have a bolt here in the middle, and then there's bolts here on each side. It may actually have a strap under here, and it should lift off, and then we should be able to get in there to our exhaust. These exhausts just snap on with springs, so pull those two springs off of there. And this exhaust has seen its better days. Pretty crooked there. Once you get this seat off and pull this side cover off as well, it's just only got one bolt holding it on. Should be able to unbolt the silencer here, slide it off, and get that whole pipe off, and then we'll be right there to the motor. Let me get all them parts off, and I'll cut the camera back on in just a sec. Alright guys, I did go ahead and loosen up this fuel line off of the gas tank. Slip that off, got all the bolts out. Now the gas tank should just lift right off, and it does. And the other thing we got to take off is this exhaust pipe. It does have an 8 millimeter bolt here, and the muffler did have two bolts in it. I think I'd only mentioned one when I first showed it. So pull this 8 millimeter off here. Almost need to hold the bike up. It's just barely teeter-tottering on my jack here. Alright, I do have the exhaust clamps off, so wiggle this thing around and it should fall off of there just like that. It's got like a gasket on there that kind of holds it. So sit that there, and we'll stick this bolt back in here just for one less bolt I have to keep up with. Because as you can imagine, I don't have a piece of cardboard for this motor, but I may have one before we end up here today. Next thing we're going to do is drain the coolant out of this thing. Let me grab the jug to put this in, because we may reuse it if it doesn't look too bad. And I'll loosen up the bolts here on the bolt here on the coolant cover to drain the coolant out. So let me grab that real quick. Alright guys, I already cracked it loose, but this 8 millimeter bolt here on the bottom of that outlet is the one that you drain the coolant out with. I'm going to try pull this thing off here and not make a complete mess, as I've done in many times while doing stuff like this. What happens a lot of times is this thing will actually pull a vacuum. When you open it, it'll drain a little coolant out, then it'll stop. But I don't think this one is. If it does, if yours does pull a vacuum to where you don't have any coolant coming out, all you have to do is pop the radiator cap open, and you might want to just ease it open kind of slow, because it will really shoot the coolant out when you do open it. I'm about to crack mine open now, so I'll give you first-hand experience of what it looks like. Right there, it comes out. So you better have your stuff together and your funnels lined up and all that stuff, or it will make a mess all over the floor. A friend told me that one time. I hadn't ever done that before though. Alright, so there we go. Got the coolant drained out. So now what we're going to do is loosen this coolant hose up and the top coolant hose up, and that should be two less things that are holding the motor on. I am going to pull the spark plug wire off and then we'll look at disconnecting the carburetor. So let me get this hoses off, spark plug wire off, and I'll cut the camera back on just to show you what you got to take off the carburetor. Alright guys, last thing I'm going to take off over here on this right side, I've got the coolant hoses off, is the clutch cable. There's actually a little tick mark on this shaft that sticks out of here, and it lines up with the crack that's on this arm. So you need to loosen that, or remove that 8mm bolt out of there, and slide that clutch arm off, and then you can disconnect the cable, and that'll free this side up. I'm thinking, I hadn't pulled one of these bikes off, or if I have, it's been a whole long time ago. So I'm thinking I'm gonna go out on the other side, just because this brake lever, I believe, is gonna be in the way. You can see we're pretty close to the frame here. So I'm gonna get everything off this side, jump to the other side, get the carburetor off. Probably gonna pull the radiator off, and then a couple motor mounts, and we should be about ready to pull this thing out. So cut the camera back on in just a sec. Alright guys, next thing I'm gonna pull off is this radiator. It's got this little plastic deflector thing on the front of it here. You can just kind of bow in on it, it'll come right out. And then there's two 8mm heavy bolts that hold it on. Like I said before, I think this thing is missing a piece of plastic that went kind of around this radiator. So yours might be just a little bit different to this. I don't know where the piece of plastic is, but we don't have it. So, alright, then you just fish these hoses out. Kind of hope I can remember how these things go back in here, because they're bent kind of funny. And then the drain, or the overflow hose, is also on there. Slide that out, and that gives us a whole lot of room over here on this side to get this motor out. So next thing we're going to do is, I'm going to stick these bolts back in here, keep from losing them. We're going to take the carburetor loose, 2 clamps here, Phillips heads, and also while I'm over here, I'm going to disconnect the, how good y'all can see that because it's kind of shining up toward the light. Disconnect the some of the wiring that's over here. There's a like a reusable zip tie right here. I'll take that off and stick it back on just so I don't lose it. And it's holding the wiring right here that goes up to this other reusable zip tie. Flip the little tab upon it, slide the zip tie out, pull your wire out, and these wires here should just unplug. Maybe. Let me see if I can tug on them a little bit. Got a protective covering on it. There you go. It's 2 barrel connectors. Well, 3 barrel connectors, I'm sorry. So there's your wire there. I don't think I said at the first of this thing, but I'm thinking this bike is around maybe a 2005, 6, 7. It doesn't have a number on it, or a year sticker, so I'm not real sure exactly what it is, but that's just what I'm guessing. Okay, so I got that wire loose. These 2 other ones here are just drain or breather hoses, and now we're going to pull the carburetor off. And not real sure what I'm going to do about the chain. I believe it's got a master link in it. I may just pull the master link and slide the whole chain off to keep from, I don't know, keep from pulling that cover off in the sprocket. That might just be the easiest thing. So let me get a Phillips screwdriver, get these clamps loosened up, cut the camera back on right before I pull the carburetor off. Alright guys, I got the carburetor clamps loosened up. What I'm planning on doing here is just sliding this thing back until it comes off of that front boot, and then twisting it out to the side and getting it off the back boot. Well, in my pullings, I just pulled it off the back boot first. Did exactly opposite of what I said I was going to do, but hey, it's going to work. So slide it off the back boot. It comes out along with all these drain hoses. This thing looks like it's about brand new, the carburetor. So tell you what I may do, I may just put that in a bag, because I'm not real sure how long it's going to take me to get this motor built. So we'll keep that out of the elements and clean. So alright, next order of business is the aforementioned chain. I've always wanted to say that, and that was actually the one time in my life that I think I could have. So spin this thing around till you see where the master link is. It's right here. This bike is going to fall off of this jack before it's all said and done. I really need a milk crate to put it on, but I don't have one right now. So we're going to pull this master link off. I know this is pretty self-explanatory, I would think, to most people, but hey, for some people it might not be. And I'm doing a engine removal video, so may as well show all the steps in removing the engine. So the way these things work, they have a split, and if they're installed correctly, the split will be in the opposite direction that the chain moves. So the chain goes this direction, so the split should be on this side of the link instead of this side. And you can take a pair of pliers and catch the edge of that split and rock them forward. These are just some some vice grips I had laying over on the cart. They're not ideal for doing this, but hey, they work. So you slide that little clip forward. I'll show it to you as soon as I get it off. There you go, and you see barely see the little notch there in the end. That's what we're trying to slide off of it. Then you slide the rest of it apart. You got a single link there, and then the link with the bars on it, or whatever you want to call those. Then you just fish this thing off of the front sprocket. Fish the whole chain out. And there you go. Chain actually doesn't look too bad either. So we're going to stick this chain as well as this master link in a bag. We'll be reinstalling those once we get the motor straightened out, but that's how you get it off. Alright, next order of business is going to be the motor mounts, and I'm probably going to have to get a stand or do something for this thing, because you got to remove this swing arm pivot bolt, and there's no telling what this is going to do if I just got it propped up on this jack halfway. So let me find me a stand. I'll cut the camera back on in a second. Alright guys, now we're going to take the motor mounts out of this thing, or the motor mount bolts, excuse me. It looks like there's 3 of them. We've got one here in the front. This is a 14 millimeter. One down on the bottom here, which is a 12 millimeter. And then the actual swing arm bolt is this one right here. And it holds it does hold the rear of the engine in, and it's a 19 millimeter. This one does have to come off from the nut side. The other side actually has a little tab to hold the socket, hold the bolt to keep it from spinning. So take this off from this side. The other ones are just normal bolts. You have to have a wrench to hold the other side. So let me get those pulled off, and I'll cut the camera back on right before I knock this bolt through to loosen the motor up and pull it out. Alright guys, got all the bolts loose except for this swing arm bolt. It does have a nut on it, a nut and a washer, I'm sorry. So you don't want to hang on to that washer. You need to take a punch or something and tap this thing through. Don't want to be hitting on the bolts because you'll mess your threads up. And the key here is just to try to knock it through until it comes just out of the side of the motor mount on the other side. That's got to be pretty close. If not, I can wiggle it a little bit to get it out. I did set this down to where the back tire is just barely touching the ground to try to take as much pressure off of that swing arm as I could. That feels like that's pretty loose right there. So what you should be able to do, key word there is being should, pick the engine up, since if I've got this bolt all the way out, and I don't think I do. Wiggle it a little bit more. Looks like it's hitting the back. Kind of acts like something else is holding it. Let me get over here on this side and look. Doesn't appear to be anything holding it. No, I think it must just be hung in the motor mounts. So Let me wiggle it around just a little bit more. Yeah, it looks like it's hung in that, it's kind of sandwiched between the swing arm back there in the back. That's the only thing that's holding it. So fish this thing out. Just got to pull the spark plug around so it doesn't hit the frame when you lift up on it. And then grab it by the kickstart there. Take the little motor out. That's a little two-stroke motor. They don't weigh anything. So that's how you do it. Stick this other bolt back in here, swing arm bolt, so your back tire don't fall off. And you can at least roll the thing around then. So there you go. That is the engine removal of a RM85, and it looks like I did it in about 40 minutes, which is kind of slow, but I was videoing this, so didn't get to just jump on it like I normally would. But that's how you get it off. I'm gonna stick a few more of these pieces of plastic and seat and all that stuff back on it so I can take it to my storage, and then y'all stay tuned for a video of tearing this little thing down and figuring out what's wrong with it. So y'all like my videos, subscribe, help me out. I need some subscribers on this thing. Don't work on many dirt bikes, but we are gonna have a little series on this one, tearing it down, putting it back together, and hopefully you'll see that thing running before too long. So hit the like button, subscribe, have a good night.